Hi, everybody. Welcome back again. We're going to be continuing the short review over the classification of organisms by picking up here at the 6 different kingdoms. There are 6 different kingdoms when we're classifying organisms: the animal kingdom, the plant kingdom, the fungi, the protists, the eubacteria, and the archaebacteria. And we're going to look at all 6 of these. The first one we're looking at here is going to be the animal kingdom. The animal kingdom are multicellular and they are eukaryotes. They are multicellular and they are eukaryotes. They are eukaryotes because all of us have, for animals, it's animal cells, and all those animal cells have a nucleus, and in that nucleus is the DNA. So they are going to be eukaryotes. Remember, eukaryotes have a membrane-bound nucleus, and we're multicellular, and we are very multicellular. When you look at the average human, which falls into the animal kingdom, the average human has 37,200,000,000,000 cells. That is a lot of cells. So they are very multicellular. Now, animal or organisms that are in the animal kingdom are heterotrophs, meaning other nutritive, and they'll eat dead or alive organisms. Organisms that are alive, like carnivores. You have scavengers that eat animals that were once alive and now they're dead. So they eat other organisms, alive or dead. And we're also, when we say organisms, you can also look at herbivores because plants are organisms. So carnivores, herbivores, and you have scavengers, omnivores, all of those. They're eating other organisms or heterotrophs. In there, you also have other classifications. So the animal kingdom, you can break the animal kingdom up then down into all these different other classifications. 2 of the other broad classifications for the animal kingdom are vertebrates and invertebrates. And this should be going way back to elementary school, and you probably remember this. Vertebrates, they have a backbone. They have vertebrae. Any animal that has a backbone, you can see this little clip going here of all these different animals. Any of them have a backbone, they are vertebrates. Invertebrates are animals that have no backbones. They have exoskeletons or they have nothing, like the earthworm. And then you have the snails that have the shell going across them there. But like insects, crustaceans, arachnids, they got that exoskeleton on them. Instead of an internal skeleton, it's that external skeleton. So that would be the very broad overview of the animal kingdom. The next kingdom we're going to look at very quickly are plants. And plants, again, are also multicellular and they're also eukaryotes. Because, again, their cells, even though their cells look slightly different than animal cells, they still have a nucleus and they still have the DNA inside of that nucleus. But now plants have something that we don't in our cells, or they have a few things, but one of them is going to be a cell wall. We have a cell membrane, plants have a cell membrane, but plants have a cell wall that surrounds their cells that helps give them their structure and their rigidity. We don't have that because we have skeletons or exoskeletons. Plants have cell walls. And you can a lot of times hear those breaking whenever you snap sticks. That's why you get that crunch with celery. You're breaking down those cell walls. Now, plants are autotrophs. So heterotrophs mean other nutritive because they're eating other organisms. They have to eat something else to get their nutrients. Plants, on the other hand, are autotrophs, meaning they self-feed. Or they make their own food, and they do so through photosynthesis. And if you can see my cursor moving around here, this is the equation for photosynthesis. Plants turn carbon dioxide from the air, and they use carbon dioxide and water. They combine them through a chemical reaction, and they make sugar and oxygen. We use the oxygen to breathe, but that sugar is where they get their energy from. Now remember, the plants will reproduce, or any living organism will reproduce. Plants are going to reproduce with seeds, like the cute little chipmunk that's chewing on the sunflower seeds, cones, like for pine trees, or you get spores, and the other one is going to be they could reproduce asexually, meaning there is no male-female tree. It's just, you're looking at now the plants just kind of becoming one or the other. They're kind of self-pollinating there. Asexually means you don't need two different trees there. They kind of self-pollinate, and that happens in rarer circumstances. Here is just a quick diagram looking over photosynthesis. So for photosynthesis to occur, you need carbon dioxide in the air, you need energy coming in, you need that sunlight. And it's going to pull water from the air, or water from the soil here in this case. And you're going to have carbon dioxide, which is the CO2, plus water, which is H2O, create sugar, which is C6H12O6, plus oxygen. But you need that light energy to start it off here. I am going to say this is one of the few equations, or one of the few things that I'm going to say that you absolutely must memorize. You must memorize the equation for photosynthesis and know exactly what it looks like. And this is the equation for photosynthesis. You can find it here, or you can find it back here. But this is photosynthesis. Know what compounds combine to make the other compounds. Carbon dioxide and water combine to make sugar and oxygen. The next kingdom we're going to look at is the fungi kingdom. Now, fungi are eukaryotes, but they can now be single cellular or multicellular, depending on the type of fungus that you're looking at. These also have cell walls. And a lot of people will say, oh, mushrooms and those other types of things like fungus, they are plants. Well, no, they are not a plant. A plant is in the plant kingdom. Fungi are not in the plant kingdom. They are in their own little kingdom here. And when you're looking at fungi, you're looking at mushrooms, yeast, and mold. Yes, the yeast that you would cook with, that is a fungi. It is a type of fungus. Now, each of their cells do have cell walls, but that doesn't make them a plant. Plants will use photosynthesis to make their food. But fungi are heterotrophs. They reproduce using spores. You see the puffballs like that are sitting on the ground, they'll explode, and those little spores will go everywhere. But fungi are heterotrophs, and they're heterotrophs because they eat what they're growing on. Whatever they're growing on, that's what they're eating. They don't make their food with photosynthesis. Plants make it with photosynthesis. Fungi do not. They eat what they're growing on. Now we're on to the next kingdom here. And this kingdom is, I've heard it called the junk drawer, and there's another video I'll show you that they call it the junk drawer of the kingdoms, because it's basically where everything that doesn't fit in the animal kingdom, anything that doesn't fit in the plant kingdom, and anything that doesn't fit in the fungi kingdom kind of get thrown here. And protists are mostly single cellular, but some are multicellular. They are still eukaryotes. They are still eukaryotes, but you have mostly single cellular. And some are heterotrophs and some are autotrophs. So some will eat other things, some will make their own food. Some examples of this would be, you have an amoeba here. You have this little video of an amoeba here on the left-hand side. In this amoeba, you see these finger-like appendages reaching out, and it's trapping in there. It looks like a paramecium, and the amoeba is going to eat it. So the amoeba would be a heterotroph because it's eating another organism there. Then you have over here in this green in the middle would be your algae. And algae is an autotroph because it's going to make its own food via photosynthesis. And then we have on the right here would be a paramecium. And a paramecium, it's single cellular, sorry. An amoeba is single cellular. So these are both eukaryotes, but single cellular. You got algae here that would be your multicellular. But these parameciums are also heterotrophs. And you can kind of see this little thing wiggling in the middle there. You can see these little openings closing up there, which could contain food, or it could contain air pockets or other things that it's trying to take in or get rid of. But it kind of engulfs just slightly like the amoeba does. And this little thing that's spinning in there is probably something that it already ate. So that's a paramecium, amoeba, algae. These are the protists. They're, again, kind of like the junk drawer of the animal kingdom, or not the animal kingdom, of the kingdoms. We then come down to the bacteria. We're looking, this would actually be its own little domain, and it's also one of the kingdoms here. We're looking at archaebacteria. These are a type of bacteria that are single cellular, They are prokaryotes and they live in extreme environments. When we're saying in extreme environments, we're talking very, very extreme. Like over here on the left, where you have the hot springs or thermal vents, like down here at the bottom of the ocean, where water is coming out of there at a couple hundred degrees. It's very hot, and no normal thing could live there. That's where you're going to find these extremists. Sometimes you'll have people call them, but these archaebacteria. Nothing else really is going to be found there, but you'll find these bacteria all around them. The other place is in here in the middle, and it's hard to tell, but these are crabs that have died. They're actually sitting in something called a brine pool. And this brine pool is where you have the salt content in the ocean increase. And because it's saltier and it's more dense, it kind of sits at the bottom and it looks like a pool inside of the ocean. But it's a super, 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 super salty water. And if things get too close to it and fall in, they're going to die because of the high salt content. But you will find these archaebacteria in there, or these extremists living in there. So extreme environments are the archaebacteria. You then have another type of bacteria, which is the eubacteria, or some people just say bacteria. These are still single-celled organisms, and they are also prokaryotes. And these include many, 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 many different types of bacteria, but they're going to be found in common places like bacteria in your soil, bacteria in the water, bacteria that live inside of your guts, bacteria that live on your skin, bacteria that live in your hair, bacteria that live on anywhere where it's common and it's not super extreme, you'll find these bacteria. And again, some of these are heterotrophs and some of them are autotrophs. Some are heterotrophs, some are autotrophs, depending on the type of bacteria. These are just the three general shapes for bacteria. You got spherical that look like little bouncy balls, the rod-like bacteria, which is what most people think of when they think of bacteria. This is the shape they see, just like you see in this image where the bacteria are moving around. Then you have these spiral type bacteria, kind of look like little pigtail curlicue things. Then the final thing here is going to be, I can move this down for you, viruses. And depending on, in modern science, depending on the scientist you talk to, a virus, they might change here, but as of right now, viruses are not living organisms. Some people think they are because of how viruses still reproduce and stuff, but they reproduce using your own cells. What they do is when a virus invades your body, depending on the type of virus here, you see these little pieces sticking out. This one has the little alien claw looking thing, and this is like an injection needle here. And up here is the virus genetic material. But what they do is they actually attach to your cells and they're going to inject their DNA into your cell. And then that DNA gets caught up in the cell and your cells will reproduce. They split apart and they remake themselves. And then these cells that are injected or infected with the virus reproduce the virus inside of themselves. They hijack the factory of the cell. They hijack it and make the cell reproduce it. And then once they reproduce the virus, that cell will explode and release more virus molecules and more virus cells out into the body. And then they will attach to more cells and they reproduce this again and again. And this goes on again and again. But they are not living organisms because they steal the factory. They hijack the factory of a normal working cell. So this is just a quick review going back over for the, sorry for the bell, for the different kingdoms here and a review of classification of organisms. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. Have a wonderful day, everybody.